Welcome to the inaugural Global Day of Impact. I'm Wendy Seal, founder of Impact100 and chief executive of Impact100 Global. With me today celebrating is my dear friend and colleague, Vi Huesman.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Violetta Huesman, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Impact100 Global.
We are going to have a lot of fun today. This is truly a celebration, but it wouldn't happen without the generosity of our sponsors that made it possible. We are delighted to have both Hammett Health Foundation and the McGee Women's Research Institute as sponsors of today's event. Later on this afternoon, we'll hear directly from MWRI CEO Mike Anakin. But for now, we want to give them our heartfelt thanks, and we look forward to working together with them in the future. And a very happy Diwali to all who celebrate. Speaking of celebration, can you believe why this is our 20th anniversary? I mean, it's November 4th, and the actual day that we sat down with the initial board and decided to start 20 years ago was October 25th. In some ways, it feels like yesterday, and in some ways, it's like a lifetime ago.
It certainly has been fast 20 years, but very impactful 20 years. And, let's just reminisce. Let's tell the story, where it all started.
So you'll remember, I was a transplant to Cincinnati, and I moved there not knowing anyone. So I immediately got involved in the community. I've always found that to be the best way to really get to know a city. And I met some amazing women. And they told me all the reasons why they weren't involved in the community any more than they had been, which was fairly limited. And I knew that the community needed their gifts and that they really needed to know what it felt like to be a part of something so much bigger. And so while I was on vacation, I got out my spiral notebook and I started writing down all of the reasons women had given me as to why they weren't involved in the community. And one by one, I tried to overcome each one of those objections, right? Sort of selling 101. But as I wrote down ways that we could overcome every reason they gave for not being involved, what started to develop on the page was what we now know as Impact100.
And if I reminisce a little bit further, is I still remember the very first day I heard about your idea and being just so excited. And at the moment, I honestly didn't know what the excitement was going to be, but I remember jumping and saying, I went in. Wendy, count me in.
Now, what people may not realize, they know you as the Chief Operating Officer of Impact100 Global. But what people may not know is 20 years ago, we worked together then too.
Yes.
And we are both recovering bankers. So we were in the banking business when I came up with this idea. So I was not your typical founder. And I didn't have sort of the pedigree, the nonprofit background, but I had passion. I had what's turned out to be a pretty darn good idea. And I was ready to implement. So you were one of the first people who said, count me in.
But at the same time, you said you had passion and you were exposed to philanthropy where I wasn't. This was something new for me. This was going to be, let's say I didn't know the journey that was starting on that day and the impact that would have on me, my children, the community. So, it was just, it's incredible when I think back, almost goosebumps. Where did the 20 years go?
So as I wrote things down, the model just began to sort of fall into place. It's very simple. gather at least 100 women. I was sure I could find 100 women in Cincinnati who could each donate $1,000 and then pool 100% of that money together into grants of $100,000 or more and offer it right back into the community that same year in significant grants that would truly transform. This was not an idea of women funding women and girls, but rather this was women funding community. Because what I knew then, and certainly know now, is that as women, we care about the entire ecosystem of a community. We care about families, education, the arts, the environment, health and wellness. All of those things really matter to us. And therefore, I didn't want to limit our funding. As I wrote down these things, it all started to make perfect sense. Perfect sense to me. But remember, I was a banker. So I started calling from my vacation. I was calling these brilliant women I knew back in Cincinnati saying, I'm going to tell you about this idea. If it's crazy, if there's something wrong with it, please tell me what that is so we can fix it. And if it's not crazy, then tell me where the organizations are that do this sort of thing, because I want to join. And one by one, the calls came back with, Wendy, we love this idea. It doesn't exist, and it's high time we bring it to Cincinnati.
But a lot of those women, Wendy, you really didn't know. So bringing an idea into a community where you didn't know anyone, the women trusted you, right, to follow and to show up on that, as you said, October 25th day, right? Yeah. October 25th, where they showed up.
And now, you talk about the women I spoke with and the women who ultimately showed up on October 25th. And it is really important to note, so often when people tell the story of Impact100 and how it started, they say, I invited my friends. But to your point, these were women, for the most part, these were women that I knew and who knew me. But not every board member came that way. Each board member was selected based on her skill. I believe that we need to surround ourselves not with people who nod to everything we say and agree with every word that comes out of our mouths, but women who will speak the truth in love, women who will challenge, respectfully, but challenge thoughts, not a rubber stamp. There is a saying that says if you surround yourself with 5 people who all agree with you, all of them are unnecessary. You really only need one if you're all going to agree. And that was the founding board, and every board since has been diverse voices, diverse skill sets, diverse opinion, diverse life experiences. And that's what really makes the difference. When I got home from my vacation, it was time to put the kids in school. And our intent was, as soon as the kids were tucked away in school and we got that routine going, that this founding board would get together. But 20 years ago, that's when September 11th happened. I know exactly where I was on that day. I know how it unfolded. It was life-changing. It was devastating. It was frightening. It was really difficult.
You plowed through. The women came together and decided that even though we had this devastation that surrounded us, we needed to do some work. We had work to do. We needed to make an impact in the community, and this was it,
Is that this is not something one woman can do alone, no matter how passionate she is. I knew that I needed at least those 10 women to stand with me and to own it in the same way that I did. It turned out all 15 said yes. It is at that meeting where we officially became Impact100. That's when we came up with a name. And we agreed to move forward to file for a 501c3. So October 25th of 2001, we had our 501c3 by March of 2002. 123 women handed us a check by May. And we ended up receiving, I want to say, 145 grant applications that first year. And across those 5 focus areas. We had named our 5 finalists, and by September, the membership came together and voted to award our very first grant. And you were there.
And yes, I was there. I still remember like it was yesterday. And as a personal experience, sitting in a room just full of amazing women want to do great things in their community, and listening to the nonprofits talk about their mission and what they were going to accomplish with this $123,000. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of impact, and it's a huge impact. And I mentioned before, philanthropy wasn't something in my vocabulary, right? Philanthropy wasn't something that I grew up with, but through the involvement of and having the opportunity and being asked to be part of this organization, it has really taught me leadership skills. It has taught me budgeting. But I came up with $1,000. And folks, I did it because I wanted to be part of something greater good. And I knew through my involvement in an organization like Impact100 that I was actually going to teach my children. I was going to teach my children about giving back in so many different ways. So that's what that meant for me.
Well, and what I won't tell you, I will, is that although her initial membership 20 years ago in Impact100 was her first foray into the world of philanthropy, it would not prove to be her last. Fast forward 20 years later, and Vi has served on countless nonprofit boards. She has received innumerable awards and recognition for her service to the community. So she may have taken her first steps 20 years ago with the help of Impact, but where she has gone from that moment until today is tremendous. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later when we talk more about what our members tell us about the experience. But suffice it to say, you are now a trained professional community servant and philanthropist.
It was the start.
Yeah.
And that is the truth about it was a start. And I mentioned the leadership skills. And it started my career and the trajectory to, getting more involved.
One of the key components, though, of the Impact100 model is that women who are our members, women get to design their own experience. Now, although I had been giving back to my community from a young age, when I started Impact100 and wrote that check for $1,000, it was a first for me too. But what I find is that when you look at an Impact100 chapter, about half of the women who join as giving the very first gift of $1,000. It doesn't necessarily mean that she doesn't have the capacity. She just hadn't done it. And then, of course, the other half are seasoned philanthropists. These are women with a view from the mountaintop. They understand what's happening in the world of philanthropy. And when we link arms side by side, we make better decisions, friendships are forged that otherwise wouldn't, and the outcomes are so much stronger. Women who join get to select. They can write a check and not do a single thing until it's time to vote. And it's perfectly fine. Women, if they choose to, there are a variety of ways for them to serve. One of the things I say all the time is that the Impact100 model is simple, but executing it well is not easy. And so we need a large number of volunteers to help us execute on that. model. At that point, they can serve on focus area teams where they'll learn how to read a grant application, make a site visit, and really vet and assess the nonprofits. But the final part of the calendar is when we come together. We will have already read about the organizations across each one of the focus areas. We might even come to the annual meeting with an idea of how we're going to vote. We have the opportunity to hear, in the words of that nonprofit, what they do to the community and how this grant, if they're awarded, would make a tremendous sustainable difference. And then it's the hardest part when we cast our vote. I remember that very first award ceremony, and I remember being in tears listening to the work of each one of those 5 finalists. Any one of them was deserving. But in the end, the membership awarded the grant to the McMicken Dental Clinic. And Dr. Judy Allen was the staff dentist at the McMicken Dental Clinic. If you know Cincinnati, the clinic's located in Over the Rhine, which is a really challenging neighborhood. And they provide all kinds of dental care for the homeless and uninsured. Now, we asked Judy to reflect on that grant and tell us what it meant to her. And so let's cue up her response. And you might need a tissue.
Because she says it best.
Very powerful.
Yes.
So here she is.
Hi, I'm Dr. Judy Allen, and I'm here to tell you about the very first grant that Impact100 gave to McMicken Dental Center 20 years ago. That transformative grant gave us much needed equipment to serve our homeless population. It enabled us to recruit 4 wonderful dentist volunteers, to have a place to educate the next generation of dentists and dental auxiliaries, many of which have returned to us to serve in public health. It helped thousands of patients to live a near normal life, to feel good about themselves again, to get jobs, to get homes. In the years that I worked with this group, we were able, with that first grant of $123,000, to provide over $15 million worth of quality dental care to the most vulnerable people in our city. Now, I consider that to be an impact, and I know you do too. I would like you all to remember, in the words of Sister Monica Joan of Call the Midwife, sometimes the hands of God can be found at the end of our own arms. That, to me, sums up Impact100. Our arms collectively stretched around our local nonprofits, their arms encompassing their clients. And now our collective arms have stretched around our country and the globe with Impact Global. One simple idea, and the hands of God touched us all. Happy 20th anniversary, my dear sisters in Impact. Here's to the next 20.
Which I think it's a great segue to talk about. We mentioned how we came together again and now working at Impact100 Global. So Wendy, would you like to kind of start there and tell us about Impact100 Global and what we do?
Absolutely. So I'm going to have to provide a little bit of history in order to talk about what's happening today. So back when the People magazine story was released, I ended up getting all kinds of emails, all kinds of phone calls from people around the country and beyond who were interested in starting an Impact100 chapter. And the inquiries all sounded fairly similar. They had seen the story in People magazine, they were inspired, and they wanted to replicate the Impact100 model in their own community. I have to say, I was stunned. I never expected this very simple idea that I thought I was creating for a specific community and a very specific group of women there. I never thought it would be something that would resonate beyond that greater Cincinnati area, but the phone calls and the emails were from far and wide. all along the way, when women would inquire about starting a chapter, first they would say, can I buy a franchise? Can I license the idea from you? Now, if you remember, the reason Impact 100 was started in the first place, it was to provide a viable path for women to get involved in their communities, a path that they didn't have available to them prior to this. So the notion that I would somehow charge people money to replicate the idea seemed counterintuitive. Why would I possibly put up one more barrier? If women around the country wanted to do this, I was going to do everything I could to help them. And so the initial 2 chapters after Cincinnati were Austin, Texas, and Pensacola, Florida. I spent an incredible amount of time with the leaders in both cities, so much so that we decided, we had our very first Impact 100 conference back in 2005 when there were only 3 chapters. Now, I hosted that event. This is before Impact 100 Global was an organization.
Right.
I hosted that event so that we could all learn from each other, so that we could get to know each other. We could share best practices. We could brainstorm for growth and for any other issues that would come up. And it was such a tremendous success. We decided that we wanted to do more of them. And so we did. From that point forward, one of those 3 chapters volunteered to have the next conference. And then when we were there, someone raised their hand and they hosted the next conference. And that's sort of how these conferences started popping up in different communities, is that at a current year's conference, a chapter would raise their hand and say, I'm in for the next one. And that worked out fine. What had happened is, as the Impact 100 movement was growing and there were more and more chapters in more and more locations, the notion of putting on a conference was significantly more than any one chapter could really handle. And so in 2014, all of the Florida chapters and I came together and we decided that we were going to host a significant conference in 2016. It would be our very first global conference. And so as we were planning for this 2016 conference, we also realized that we needed the infrastructure in place. And so Impact 100 Global Advisory Council was legally formed in 2015. Yes. Right. We call ourselves Impact 100 Global for short. And we exist for 2 reasons. And I know you have them memorized now because you were the very first employee after me. But it is to help launch chapters wherever they may be, and to lift our existing chapters to reach their highest potential. It's simple, but it's kind of like a model. It's simple, but not necessarily easy.
Yeah. The execution is just like anything else. If you want to be successful in anything that you do, there has to be the processes, the procedures, the resources that you need. And that's what we're doing here from the Global. We are small, but with all confidence, we're mighty.
As much as we look at how far we've grown, I look at the maps, even just of the United States, and recognize there are so many states, so many cities that don't yet have an Impact 100. And of course our goal is to change that.
Yes.
You talk about remarkable women, and when we talk about the global organization, I remember vividly when I had my very first conversation with a very remarkable woman by the name of Carrie Morgridge. Now, I didn't know Carrie. Carrie had heard about Impact 100 because she was asked to speak at a local Impact chapter very close to where she has a home in Florida. And when she went there, she was ready to tell the story of how the Mortgage Family Foundation funds their grants and and sort of what their ethos is for going out and making transformational gifts. And when she heard about Impact 100, she was hooked. She was intrigued. And through that chapter, she was introduced to me. And I remember her saying to me in our very first Zoom call, and this is back 2015 or early 2016. And she said, I love the model. I understand the model. But she said, here's my question. How do you get paid? How do you get paid? I don't understand how it works if 100% of the money goes right out into the community. And I said, I sort of laughed. I said, you're right. Yep, I don't get paid. I have this day job. I have this consultancy called Generosity Matters, where I go out and I work with companies, with families. We talk about legacy and generosity. In other words, I have a fee-for-service business over here that funds my Impact 100 habit. Well, I watched Carrie and her right-hand man, John Farnham. I watched both of their faces sort of drop in that answer. And the long and short is she said, maybe it's time we do something about that. So Carrie and the Mortgage Family Foundation have been really generous supporters of ours, of me personally. I could go on and on and on, of Impact 100 Global. And honestly, they have supported every single chapter. Carrie is currently a member in every single chapter around the globe.
Yes.
And her family members and even the staff at Mortgage Family Foundation are also members in those chapters that are closed.
Yes.
So Carrie, we asked Carrie to tell us what inspired her. I mean, she was the leader. She was the first person to give to Impact 100 Global. And certainly she also supports the chapters. And in her eloquent way, let's hear how Carrie answered that question.
Hi, my name is Carrie Morgridge, and I'm Chief Disruptor at Mortgage Family Foundation. And I am so excited to be a part of the inaugural Global Impact 100 Day. And congratulations to Wendy Steele and all of the chapters. When I first learned about Impact 100, not only could I not wait to join, I wanted to join every single chapter. So I did. And I have just been on the amazing journey with such incredible women since this movement got started, or since I learned about it. And I just want to say how proud I am to be a part of a movement that's actually helping cure societal distrust, that we're trusting in our community again. We're building something bigger than ourselves. And together, we've given away over $100 million. Now that is true impact. So to all of my sisters out there, congratulations. To all of those who haven't been invited to the table, please join us. It's a great movement with wonderful women, and we're transforming lives and communities. To Wendy Steele and everyone at Global Impact 100, congratulations.
Carrie, thank you again. What a powerhouse. Now, Carrie was the first person to fund the work we do at Impact 100 Global, but she's not the last.
Hello, my name is Amy Tatry-Lepp. I am the co-founder and past president of Impact 100 Oakland County in Michigan. On this, the inaugural Global Day of Impact, join me in supporting the work of Impact 100 Global. I support Impact 100 at both the movement level and the chapter level, because at the local level, we are able to bring women together to engage in impactful large-scale grant giving and give that to support the nonprofits who are actually the ones serving our community. With Global, we're able to grow and strengthen our local impact chapters so we can give back even more.
I support Impact 100 globally and at a local level because for the past 14 years, I have seen what a tremendous difference it has made in my community and in those around the world. Please join us in celebrating Global Impact Day.
On this first Global Day of Impact, join me in supporting the work of Impact 100 Global. I support Impact 100 at the movement and the chapter levels because women working together are an unstoppable force for good in our communities.
I really love all things impact. I love that it is not just a collaboration of women pooling their funds together. We are also a collaboration of women pooling our resources together and our skills. I can't wait to see what we do as we go forward, as Impact grows, and I am very proud to be a member of Impact the Palm Beaches.
I obviously am passionate about impact, and again, just want to thank Wendy for giving me this opportunity to be of service to my community and to really wake up every day enjoying what I'm doing with this group. It is a group of strong, energized, passionate, kind women. So if that description fits any of you, you belong here.
On this, the inaugural Global Day of Impact, join me in supporting the work of Impact100 Global. I support Impact100 at the movement and chapter level because inspiring women and creating change in my community is the best idea ever.
The way our model works is we at Impact100 Global, we rely on philanthropy. We rely on our sponsors, the McGee Women's Health Research Institute, Hammett Health Foundation. We rely on our sponsors in order for us to do the work that we do. We rely on donations. We rely on philanthropy. We still, 20 years later, we don't charge our Impact100 chapter any sort of a fee. Now, even though we don't charge a fee, we have had very generous chapters who have made donations. They have looked at the work that we do and they've understood that it's important. And so there have been individual members of chapters who have been very generous, giving us both in-kind and cash donations. We have chapters that have supported us, and we literally wouldn't be able to pay to keep the lights on without those donations. So I would be remiss to say, if you like what you see, if you want to learn more, if you're ready to support Impact100 at the movement level, at the global level, please reach out to us. It could make a tremendous difference, not just to us, but to women all around the world.
But that's where we talk about the Impact100 Global being the engine, right? We are the engine for not only the existing chapters that we lift every single day, and with your support, I know we can do that because we have a lot of communities in the pipeline.
We do.
Right?
I think we have currently more than 50 chapters, 50 communities who have raised their hands saying, I need to bring an Impact100 here, and we are thrilled. But we are a mighty team of 3, and we can't quite help all 50 yet, but we will. And you'll hear a little later today some of the other plans that we have for Impact100 Global, for the entire community. But we call ourselves Impact100 Global, and our 2016 conference was our first official, it was the first time we could use the word global conference because we had an attendee from Australia.
Yeah, and the attendee was?
Well, it was Ricky Andrews.
Yes.
That is who, she was the founder in Melbourne, Australia. But we now, in 2021, we now have chapters, of course, in the United States. There are 8 chapters in Australia. We have 1 chapter in New Zealand, and we have 1 chapter in the United Kingdom. And we currently have other chapters, both within the United States and globally, that are just starting to get going. Now, Australia is the second largest Impact100 community, which might be a little bit of a surprise, but yeah,
next
here
to
we
Florida,
are.
right?
Well, Florida, the state, yes, exactly.
So, Wendy, can you tell us, how did it all start? Where did it begin?
You know, it's funny, I get that question, and people think that, you know, I knew someone in Australia, but it's amazing, really. So there are a couple things to know about Australia. One of those is that the model there is gender neutral, meaning when we talk about empowering women in Australia, we talk about empowering members. And in fact, in Australia, the entire Impact 100 movement was started by an amazing man by the name of James Boyd.
Yes.
Now, James and I have become really good friends. I adore him. Side story, when I was in northern Michigan, and James, of course, lived in Australia, his wife is a novelist, and she was on a book tour, and she ended up in Cincinnati. He thought I still lived there, which of course I didn't at the time. This was 2015. And he said, I'm going to be in Cincinnati for like a day, 2 days. Can we get together? I drove 8 hours, and he and I sat in a hotel lobby restaurant for, I don't exaggerate, we sat for 8 hours. Now, you know I can talk. James can talk. It was amazing. And we had, of course, communicated lots of different ways prior to that. But what happened with James is that he was hired by the government when the government was trying to learn from America the best ways to fund arts and culture and to generally encourage philanthropy in the country. Australia is behind the United States when it comes to giving back.
Yes.
Neither men nor women are very comfortable with that. They're a little bit more private. They're a little bit less willing to sort of stand up and say, I give and you should too. And so James came over and he had a lot of different meetings. He met with community foundations. He met with collective giving groups. He met with all kinds of organizations. And when he returned, he was having a drink with a friend who asked, tell me about your project. So he explained that the research was completed, he had submitted it, and all was well. And she went on to say, what was your favorite? What was the best thing you learned? And he said, I learned about this organization called Impact 100. And the more they talked, they agreed that they would launch Impact 100 in Australia. So there are now 8 Impact 100 chapters in Australia and more coming all the time. All but one are gender neutral. We have a chapter in Sydney, in North Sydney, in Melbourne, in Perth, in Fremantle, in Tasmania, and in South Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm missing one, Queensland.
Wow, Wendy, here we are. Talked about global, how many chapters we have there. But what I really want you to tell us is the impact, the dollars, the grants that have gone into the communities internationally.
Yeah, Australia has done some amazing things. So in Australia alone, and they started in 2013.
Yes.
So the very first impact grant was given away in Australia in 2013. And by the end of this year, those chapters will have given away more than $6.5 million. That's transformational right there. When you imagine $6.5 million of money that didn't exist before, generosity that wasn't released out into the community, to all those nonprofits who are out there trying to solve the most pressing problems.
And you talked about how Australia is trying to learn about, giving back and philanthropy, and to give away $6.5 million. But you and I can sit here and talk about how the work that they've done and the money that has gone back into the community. But why don't we let them tell us? Let them tell us what has happened and how many lives they impacted. So, Australia, take it away.
We've given over $1,290,000 to charities in Adelaide. That is a mammoth effort. We're the biggest impact in Australia.
I love the exposure to charities that I haven't come across before. I love the sense of it's more than just giving $1,000. It's collective giving, and so there's so much more impact.
The money that you donate to Impact 100, you know, is going into a bigger pot that is all going to assist the cause.
It's the exposure that all the finalists get to a lot of generous philanthropists that we have in South Australia.
Even beyond tonight, there are people in this room who are going to go on and support the charities longer term.
Great credit to a small organisation, and we're really proud of what we do. It's just wonderful to get the support.
It's been a wonderful opportunity to actually put into writing what we have been aiming for years, and to make it a realisation is just brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So delighted, and I'm so pleased, and I'm so grateful to everybody who has voted tonight for Cottages for Country Care. Thank you ever so much.
I could hear those stories again and again, and they just never get old. Each one is unique. Each story is so specific, not just to the communities where these nonprofits are doing their important work, but to the individuals that benefit from the grant making.
Yes.
Now, I'm often quoted as saying that an Impact 100 chapter is only as strong as the women who join, and as transformational as the nonprofits who apply. So let's talk about our members. We have members from every corner of the United States and abroad. And yet in Detroit, Michigan, there is a woman who has been a member of Impact 100 Metro Detroit. And she created this video that tells the membership experience from her viewpoint. But it really is a universal message of what it's like when you join your local Impact 100. This is Edwina Castone, and she created this video for Metro Detroit, but I believe we'll all benefit from the lessons it provides.
Yes.
I joined Impact 100 Metro Detroit because I had been looking for a meaningful way to give back to my community for a long time. But I also wanted something that allowed me to be flexible without losing the option of participating and being a part of something bigger. I wanted an active way to be a part of the good being done in my community. And there are varying levels to anything, and Impact 100 Metro Detroit allows me to participate as much as I want without having to step away or overcommit. I appreciate that flexibility. I also trust that my fellow members have my best interests at heart because we all are working together. I know them and they know me. They are here with me, and that is truly amazing. I am honored to be a part of an organization that has such an immediate impact on the community. I can see our work in action, who it helps, and how the difference is made, and that it's put back into the community where I grew up. This is really incredible. I am grateful to have found an organization that allows me to participate in such a hands-on way at so many different levels. I know my vote counts, and I see where it goes within the focus areas of arts and culture, education, family and individual support, health and wellness, and revitalization, recreation, and environment. These areas encompass people of all ages and backgrounds too.
Right, did I tell you? Edwina is so talented. I absolutely love that video. It tells the compelling story of membership in an Impact 100 chapter. We know that being a member of an Impact 100 organization is not a one-size-fits-all. Women join for different reasons. They get involved at varying levels, and they really walk away with different skills, different experiences, and different stories to tell. In fact, I would go so far as to say that a member's experience is as unique as that woman herself. Now, earlier, we talked a little bit about how you joining the very first Impact 100 in Cincinnati 20 years ago was your entree into the world of philanthropy and giving back. We have some testimonials that we're going to share coming up in a few minutes, but first, if I'm putting you on the spot because I
Yes, you are.
I was going to ask you this, but would you just describe in your own words what membership was like for you 20 years ago? Now, I know you're currently a member of a chapter here, but back then, what was membership like for you, and how did it make you into the woman you became from there?
Oh, thank you. Membership for me, being part of this organization, is I didn't know what I didn't know, honestly. As a member, I was exposed to the nonprofits in our community. I was exposed to the work, to learn about the work that these nonprofits were doing in our community. And not only that, but now I became an advocate for these nonprofits. I mean, I thought I was going to help the nonprofits, and in turn, they were actually helping me understand where I lived, my community, so that I become a better person, a better woman, a better mother, a better citizen. I said it before, it was the trajectory to my career. It advanced me to feel comfortable, to get engaged in my community. You know, I can go on and on and on, Wendy, and here I am 20 years later, and there's still a lot of things I don't know, and I'm still in the learning mode, don't get me wrong, but I'm so much better than I was 20 years ago, at least I think so.
You know, we always talk about Impact 100. It empowers women and it transforms communities. And spoiler alert, later in our time together, we're going to talk about the proof, if you will, the validation about empowering women. But ultimately, I think, Vi, what you've just described is that through your experience with Impact 100 Cincinnati, you really felt empowered to step into a more full version of yourself, to really serve in bigger ways.
It's the confidence. The confidence that I gained, again, going back to those things, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right. Well, let's hear from some other members who have their own experience to share.
It's never been a better time to be a woman wanting to create change.
Impact Fairfield County is affecting all of the most compelling issues in our county.
We've been able to fund some of these crucial issues, but there's just so much more work to be done. And there's such amazing applications coming in areas that we haven't touched yet.
I think we're, especially in the last year, seeing things that we never thought we were going to be experiencing, and the nonprofits are then going through things that they never thought they'd be experiencing.
The formula is great, just one woman, $1,000, and you really make a difference.
There are learning opportunities, and that you really can get out of it as much or as little as you want to, and there's no judgment, and it still has a huge impact on you and on the community.
I really believe in the saying, if you have something to get done, give it to a woman.
This is something I can do really, frankly, for the rest of my life.
Watching these women pool their resources and just seeing all the projects that they were able to complete throughout the community and the impact that that was having on the individuals here and our community as a whole was something that I wanted to be a part of.
Over the last 13 years, our chapter has given over $4 million in large, impactful grants to many nonprofits in our community. We are thrilled to have a group of women who can come together to make such an impactful difference. We are so excited to have such an awesome philanthropic model that pulls our resources together without any deductions. We have no operating expenses. We have no salaries. It's just a group of amazing volunteer women who have a philanthropic gift of giving.
For me, I figured that within a short amount of time, I would be learning about a lot of organizations in Denver having a real impact. And I thank Impact 100 for helping me to know my new home, for helping me to have a new set of friends, and to have a passion for collective giving. I'm 100% behind Impact 100 Metro Denver.
I've met so many incredible women. It's helped me personally. It's helped me, I would say, in my career. And it's just helped me to be a better person. What Impact 100 does is it allows a nonprofit to be able to dream. It allows them to think, what would, if finding the money wasn't an issue, what could we do that would make our lives so much better?
And I saw that by joining Impact, I could give by bundling my $1,000 with another $1,000 contribution from 99 other women, it created this grant that could really let a nonprofit do amazing things.
So members are the first part of the story. And it's the first part of our calendar. It's where it all begins, is to get women to come together, to pool their resources and offer them up as significant grants right in their local community.
Yes.
But the reason every Impact 100 exists, the reason these women are so generous, is because of the work happening at the local level with those nonprofits. That's what it's all about. That's where our funding goes, and that's why we do what we do. And originally we heard from Dr. Judy Allen, and she gave us sort of her experience as being the staff dentist of our very first grant recipient, the McMicken Dental Clinic. But she came back to us to describe in a very visual way what happened. What did those funds provide? What Judy has pulled together here are the before and after pictures. This is giving heart and soul to the clients, the patients that she has served over the years. Now, remember, our very first grant was $123,000, and it bought 5 new dental chairs for her practice, for this practice in Cincinnati. And as we look at the faces, and they go from not smiling, from missing teeth, black teeth, swollen, to smiling, to pride, from unemployed and underemployed.
But again, the confidence.
Yeah.
And that's what these visuals, no words are needed in this video, because you will start to feel what these individuals felt the minute that their teeth were beautiful.
Part of what Judy talks about here is the fact that our $123,000 grant actually multiplied to provide more than $15 million of value. We talk about our grants being transformational and sustainable, and our very first grant was certainly a demonstration of that in spades. Now, although Judy was our first grant and the McMicken Dental Clinic was our first grant, here we are all these years later. In every community where we have an Impact 100 chapter, there are stories just like this. We don't have time to share them all, but we do have some amazing testimonials from our grant recipients, from different communities around the globe, and I'd love to have them in their own words describe what that meant.
Yes. And so join us, and let's hear it from them.
Yeah, we can listen in.
Yes.
I'd like to thank Impact 100. The grant has been fantastic. It's positioned us to be able to support an additional 10 young people for a whole year in our independent living program. And also it's boosted our strategic plan, which is to actually increase and scale to support 200 young people by 2024. And we're on track for that. And part of that is thanks again to Impact100.
Having an organization like Impact Fairfield have faith in us and give us this $100,000 grant is extremely helpful in us applying for other grants. There's nothing you can say that would really equate how transformational this is.
So through the $100,000 grant, thank you Impact100 for providing that to us in 2018 and allowing us to serve thousands of refugees through your very generous contribution.
Hi, I'm Paul Schmitz. I'm the Executive Director of Shower Up, and we were the 2018 recipients of the Impact Nashville grant. And that grant amount was for $28,500. The reason I know exactly how much that grant amount was because that was the exact cost for us getting another mobile shower unit to serve those who are experiencing homelessness in Nashville and the surrounding area. So that grant was incredibly impactful, allowing us to serve additional locations and camps and individuals who are experiencing homelessness and providing them not only with a hot shower and hygiene and personal care, but also with a sense of hope, a sense of dignity, and a sense of understanding how much they are loved and valued. So thank you. And again, we appreciate so much the work that you all have done to help make Nashville and the area a better place.
So from the bottom of my heart and Hope Center, we thank you, and we just appreciate having this partnership with you.
Having that $100,000 allowed us to take that grant and divide it over 2 years. We felt so strongly about this program. We knew how much it was needed, and the impact right now that it has on children is showing how much it was needed.
I know that this is going to be transformational. It already has been, and we can't wait to see what the future brings. So thank you to Impact Fairfield County.
We want to thank Impact the Palm Beaches for helping us reach young people and for giving us the courage and the school contacts to create a 7th grade touring production centered on teen human trafficking awareness. So thank you for the impact you've made on thousands of middle school students in Palm Beach County and for giving us the opportunity to create a program that critically thinks through topics that are very important to young people.
The stories, it's always like hearing them for the first time. They always get me. And I don't think that will ever go away.
If you are listening and you're moved by this, please join your local chapter. The way that these grants get funded is through membership. So if watching these testimonials, learning a little bit about Impact100, if you're not currently a member, please reach out and join your local chapter. Your $1,000 makes a tremendous difference. Every increment of 100 members means we give away another grant, and each grant has a sustained, transformative effect on the local community. You'll have the chance to be a part of something much bigger.
Mm-hmm. We talk about what we do on the chapter level. We talk about what we do on the global level. But in the business world, they call it the ROI. So what is the return on the impact, Wendy? You wanna?
Yeah, it's interesting. Until very recently, all we could share about the results of our work were like the stories you just heard. It was as a little anecdote here, a story there. But what we now have, again, thanks to the Mortgage Family Foundation for funding this research, and we sort of hang our hats at Impact100. We say that we empower women and that we transform communities, but how do you quantify that and what does that mean? Well, fortunately, we had, through the Mortgage Family Foundation, a research analyst who is very skilled in her craft, and she completed a robust research project. The research analyst and her team, they really took a deep dive into the work that we're doing. She interviewed presidents of Impact100 chapters. She then interviewed members as well as grant recipients. In every case, She was looking to quantify, to provide hard data around this notion that we empower women and we transform communities. And so on the membership side, when you look at the results of the survey, you will see that in fact, we have data that now backs up we do empower women. We empower women in the 3 ways that are clinically described as the behaviors of people who are empowered. We then took a deep dive into the grantees, and through a number of very targeted questions, we learned that the impact of Impact100 is profound. That these organizations, they not only received funding, but they received so much more. The grants and the connection to their local Impact100 chapter really changed the world. Now, the results of this survey, this data alone is powerful. It's a tool that we've never had before.
Right.
But they then took it a step further. And through the Mortgage Family Foundation publishing arm, digital magazines were created. Now, there is a global magazine that gives all of the results, which is what we're showing here. But any chapter that participated, they received their own magazine specific to their own chapter. This information tells a compelling story, but it's proof positive that the work we're doing is actually successful. That we're not just giving this money away, sort of throwing it down the well, never certain when it's going to land, but we actually are making an impact. And the return on that impact is exponential to the initial grant that we give. This data changes the game for our organization as a global movement, as well as for every single chapter. Because by every measure, we outperform our peers when it comes to loyalty and retention of our members, the results of our grant making.
Yes.
And this is, in many ways, better than any trophy, better than any recognition, better than any award that we could receive as an organization, because this is the proof that the model really works.
That's right. That's right.
When we talk about the proof that it works, when we talk about the impact of Impact100, what we're really talking about is the local chapters. In communities around the globe, volunteers are working tirelessly to bring the Impact100 model to their community and to execute it well. We've talked an awful lot about that from the member perspective and the grantee perspective. So now, let's get to some of the numbers. We currently have more than 60 chapters that are operational. We have more than 50 communities where individuals have raised their hand saying they want to bring Impact100 to their community. We've talked about what it takes to run a chapter and what's gotten us to this point. But let's look around at the communities that make up Impact100. Now, the very first chapter was Cincinnati, so we should start with them. Cincinnati has been around since 2001,
right?
And they are making a profound difference in the 10-county area. But Cincinnati is not the world's largest chapter. No. The world's largest chapter is in a perhaps unexpected place, but
Pensacola,
Florida. Pensacola, Florida. Now, they were the second chapter to launch, but they have lapped to the field when it comes to growth. The women of Pensacola just kept wanting to grow.
They're on fire.
And grow.
They're on fire.
Can you imagine that they have given away, just that one chapter has given away more than $13 million since inception?
Yes. And if I may say so, and I know we're, honing on Pensacola, but celebrating them because they have held, for the last 6 years, they have held over 1,100 members. Folks, if you're good at math, that means that they are giving away 11 grants, minimum of $100,000.
But what they call in Pensacola, the day of their annual meeting, when they go to give away that money, they have called it, since their 10th anniversary, which is when they hit that 1,000 for the first time, $1 Million Sunday.
Yes.
If you can imagine how the community celebrates $1 Million Sunday. In fact, they just had that not long ago.
No, about a month ago or so, they did that.
You know, we've talked about the grants that are happening in Australia and New Zealand and the UK. So our global grants, they're all rolling in. You know, the second largest Impact 100 organization is Palm Beach, Florida. Now, they've been around, this is their 11th year, and they gave away for the first time 6 grants. Now, I have it on good authority that they are happy to be number 2, but they don't plan on staying number 2. So I would say, Pensacola, look over your shoulders, ladies, because Southern Palm Beach County is on its way. Now, it really isn't about how many members and how big it is, although we always celebrate that. Every chapter is making a profound difference in their community, whether it's rural Missouri, Manhattan, New York, San Francisco, California, London, England. It matters to the community. And so we are excited to celebrate with every single chapter as we start to see these numbers come in. Every community has their own story to tell, whether they're the largest, whether they're the smallest, or anywhere in between. When women come together like this in community, they pool their resources and they fund these grants, amazing things happen. Now, what's interesting is as we look at the history of Impact 100 and we look at our chapters, through economic downturn, we've survived, we've thrived. Through individual and global headwinds, Impact 100 chapters continue to make a powerful difference, but none as powerful as what happened in 2020. Typically, if we get 1 or 2 or 3 chapters that start a year, that's a big year for us. But 2020 was a whole nother ballgame. You were very busy.
Yes, I was very busy. And what Wendy is trying to share with us is that 2020 we launched 9 chapters. That is, I was like, 9, that's a large number. They gave away over $1 million in 2020. And
this is new money. This is activating new philanthropists and new money in communities. And when you think about that was a time that every community really needed it. And I think the simple model of Impact 100, it resonated and women were more generous than usual.
But they wanted to do something.
Yeah.
Really, because everybody felt the impact of 2020 and they wanted to do something.
They saw the need.
And
they met
that need.
They did. Which is remarkable. Now, looking ahead, we're actively working with so many organizations. It's too soon to know how many new chapters will launch this year, but probably at least 3, maybe 4. And then there are already several more who are teed up to start in 2022, which is to say that the demand for our services and the interest in the Impact 100 model continues to thrive as we move forward. 2020 was a record-breaking year.
Yes.
As we move forward, we hope that becomes the norm. We hope that becomes a slow year for us, would be to launch 9 chapters. And that's part of what we're looking to build. But right now, we are celebrating as we watch these chapters and we watch the numbers. But when we celebrate today the Global Day of Impact, we are celebrating giving away $105 million, $1,000 at a time,
Yes.
from women like you and I who just gave their 1,000. And the transformation, the grants that we've given, $105 million. It's amazing. In fact, we should have champagne.
Yes, we should.
We should have champagne. Thank you for joining us. We have chapters who are celebrating right along with us, virtually and in person. We have individuals from around the globe, and we're hearing from some of you. So thank you for that. Our time is running out, and we would be remiss if we didn't talk about, we spent an awful lot of time talking about where we've been and how it started, and all of the individuals and organizations that have brought us to our 20th anniversary celebration. And we're excited, and we have lots to be proud of, but I can say with certainty that as we look ahead, we are just getting started. As we've said over the past several minutes, we have more and more chapters, more and more women who are interested in furthering this movement. The demand is clear.
Yes.
Impact 100 Global is a small but mighty team, and we have been delivering educational resources, conferences, video conversations in order to really help to lift existing chapters to their highest potential and launch new ones. But we have big plans. We have big plans as we look ahead.
Yes.
Our hope is to take what is a modular-based learning system where we train our chapter leaders about the Impact 100 model and turn it into a robust academy. An academy where our leaders and members can learn not just about the Impact 100 model, but that all that they would need to fill a role, whether that's a board member, a treasurer, a governance committee chair, or nominating, that will help members to learn. Impact 100 Academy will take the impact manager system we have now and multiply it exponentially. There will be quizzes, there will be tests, and you actually will get certified. And so you can hang that certificate on your refrigerator. You can use it as part of the signature. It will be the way that new board members on board and learn what it takes to do their role, as well as individual members, as well as what I like to call our Impact 100 super fans. We have those women, whether they serve on the board or not, that just love the model and they want to learn more.
The more education that we can bring to the current board and membership, right? The better the chapters are, the stronger the chapters are. Because again, it's all about teaching and mentoring new leadership so that the chapters are growing and thriving and continue to make the impactful work in the community.
We always talk about the success of the chapters rises and falls on the leadership. Strong leaders make for strong chapters.
Yes.
So if we say we empower women, we need to equip them to really deliver on that promise.
Yes.
And we expect that. Now, it took us 20 years, kind of a blink, but 20 years to reach $100 million in impact. Looking ahead, it's not going to take us another 20 to get to 200 million.
No.
That's right around the corner. The momentum is strong. And as we look ahead, we know that Impact 100 Global will be providing more technological resources, more educational resources, more one-on-one coaching and consulting. I have the great pleasure of traveling to our existing chapters. And when I do, I'm often asked to speak at an event, and I'd love to do that. I'd love to meet the grantees. I'd love to meet the members. There's usually also a piece where I'm working fairly intensely with the local board, either to get ready to celebrate a milestone, to move past a challenge, to shore up an area that they've identified as a potential weakness. And in doing that, it helps to bring them to their best potential. So we will be doing more and more of that. We will have Impact 100 ambassadors who will work closely with Global and be connected to our chapters. We have all kinds of big plans for the next 20 years. To do it, we are going to need a lot of the brightest minds to come alongside us and help guide our steps. We also certainly will be in need of some significant infrastructure funding. But together, we know we can achieve those goals and many more. It's in that spirit that I'd like to allow CEO of the McGee Women's Research Institute, Mike Anakin, to say a few words. You'll recall that MWRI, in collaboration with the Hammett Health Foundation, are sponsoring today's event. And Mike and I want to share that this is only the beginning. So Mike, send it over to you.
Thank you, Wendy. I would like to start by saying congratulations on 20 years of excellence and more than $100 million raised and invested back into your communities. It's truly incredible, and the McGee Women's Research Institute and Hammett Health Foundations are proud to be sponsors of the Impact 100 Global Conference. McGee Women's Research Institute was started in 1992. It was the first research institute focused solely on women's health. In fact, before the early 90s, there was no research on women's health. Drugs were allowed to be tested on men only, yet approved for distribution to all. Over the past 30 years, we have been playing catch up, but are moving the needle significantly. We have grown to almost 400 faculty and staff researching 292 conditions and have built partnerships in over 20 countries on 5 continents. We truly are changing the way the world treats women. And today, as we look back at our collective accomplishments and plan for our future impact, I'm proud to say we're taking the next step in that journey. McGee Women's Research Institute is launching a partnership with Impact 100, the world's largest women's research institute with the world's largest women's giving movement. Just imagine what we can do together. In the months ahead, we look forward to partnering with the Impact Network to drive education, advocacy, and philanthropy for life-changing research and creating better healthcare outcomes and equity in your communities. I'm very much looking forward to the possibilities when we join forces to make tremendous impact throughout the world. And thank you all for the opportunity to do so and for everything you've done to make your communities a better place. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you.
We need you to join your local chapter so that that chapter can make a bigger impact, so that more grants can be funded and more work can be achieved in that community for that transformational change. We also invite you to join us at Global. Support our work in any way that you feel led, whether that means writing a check to Global as part of your support, whether it means becoming a corporate partner, a sponsor, being a part of that inner circle that understands that at the movement level, we do need funding in order to do these things we have planned to help support all of our chapters. So any way you want to get involved, you are welcome. And we look forward to those conversations. Let's raise a glass.
Let's raise a glass and celebrate the thousands of women out there that have made an impact.
Cheers to 20 years and to many, many more. And a huge thanks to all of you who made it possible.